Welcome to The Wave.
Everybody, this is the final episode of Season 1 of Mix-Thru. Thank you to everyone that's checked it out. We're going to do a little bit of recap, and then we're going to finish up the Into the Void mix by Image of Deceit. A couple of things I want everybody to keep in mind as we get to the end of this. One thing that I'm anticipating hearing is that it's coming in too quiet, right? It's going to definitely finish, and I mean finish, at -6 dB. That's the sweet spot for your final mix. Yes, final mixes sometimes peak around -3. Mastering engineers, though, because of their workflow, need to have some headroom to do what they're going to do. So check this out. We're going to hear, well, why not just raise the volume on your perfect mix until it's just not clipping and it's at streaming volume? Because when you do that, some of the dynamics of the mix are going to make your loudness units, so LUFS, anyone familiar with mixing in LUFS will know what I'm talking about. Your integrated LUFS are going to suffer when you don't add thickness to things that you might not necessarily perceive, or that you have just had mixing ears too long to recognize, right? That it is a real thing. So keep in mind that you really do want to be hitting around -6 dB for your final mixes. If you're mastering yourself, obviously you're going to have your own workflow and you're going to do what you want to do. But I really do recommend staying down in the -6 to -3 range. And the reason is because once you get really into the mix process, you're going to want to get really into the mastering process too, whether you do right now or not. And I'm telling y'all, we went through 3 months of it when I went to school for audio production, and there's just a lot to the mastering process. And it's not like you can't make good music without it, but it will surprise you what you can do with it. I think that's the best way to put it. So we're going to dive right on in. I want to start with a recap. Some of the things that we covered are setup, which is very important. We have our mix bus here. Really, this is a group that we purposed for a mix bus track so that we can raise and lower the volume on the whole mix with one fader. Inside of it, we got our vocal sub. We got our drums. We have our bass, guitar, and synth. I think we've all seen all of them enough at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and collapse them back. We also talked about how to set up tracks with basic processing and gain staging. We went through every single track in gain stage to right at or on -6 dB individually, and then we moved the fader. Again, it's all about headroom. You want that headroom to be able to use your plugins effectively. So gain staging was a big thing that we touched on. Basic EQ and filtering, coming in on the vocal sub and making sure that you're staying clear of everything in the sub range and on the low mids end. It's not used there anyway, and yes, unless it's being used for special effect. So you might as well clean it up, and it is going to do wonders for your mix. We also covered things like feathering EQ moves. This is actually pretty surgical right here, but we even got surgical with some EQ. We found very small sounds that we didn't like. We took them out. Let's go to the bass sub. Now here we show our feathering EQ moves. We know our kick is at 50 hertz or round about there. We found where it was exactly. We put a little cut right here. Same with our snare. The snares are kind of high on these Easy Drummer samples, so 200 hertz. I think it was literally like 188 or 198, so we did a little dip right here. That's a feathering EQ move. We also came in with compression. Not super duper crush it compression, but leveling compression. Where did we do this mostly? On the vocals. This has a compressor that we are about to tweak in this session. These, though, have a CLA 76. that we came in and checked the peaks on across the track to make sure that they were hitting right around here. Some of them were coming in up here, and we manipulate input, which is how much of the signal is being fed into the threshold. And then you have an output knob to control volume. It helps you gain stage from within the plugin, so you don't have to worry too much about fader manipulation and being way off there and having to redo things or reprint audio. Then you got your attack and release, which we were talking about. We want a pretty quick attack and a pretty slow release on this. I'm actually going to move this out a little more. I think I missed this one. And I do want it to be a lot slower on the release. We don't want the compressor to stop compressing too quick, and you hear just a very abrupt cutoff from that audio signal in the mix too. It's real noticeable. What else did we do here? Going down through, these are all taken care of. We talked about sub-based EQ. Everything in this sub now has a high-pass filter on it that is at 290 hertz. I got a little freaked out because you come down to some of these that have EQ on them. Where did I just hit? There we go. And you can see the waveform here, and I was like, whoa, don't want that there. But I forgot that it's only here within the sub. Once it goes and hits this vocal sub fader, hits our EQ here, it is all gone. Check it out.
When I see text, I'm in my mind. When I see text, I'm in my.
Oh, not that one.
When I see.
And not that one.
My I become my voice.
And then we come back up here.
My I become.
So just keep that in mind. Don't let it freak you out like it freaked me out. Moving on down, though, we talked about, we'll collapse vocals for a sec. We talked about busting out effects. I know we did this on the drums, and for this, I'm going to pull down our mix window. Boom. So we've got buses here. Ableton builds them in, which is very nice. The more you add, we'll add a return track really quick. Boom. It adds another knob here for you to use, equivalent to the pop-up faders in Logic, Pro Tools, Reaper. Studio One probably has the same type of thing, but they add them all here in Ableton. I'm going to delete that before it gets messy in here. And then we're going to get this out of our way. Actually, I wanted to check guitars. I was wondering. Okay, good. Okay, so we did effects buses on the drums. We bust out a little bit of reverb on the whole kit. But remember, for that reverb, we came in here in the drums. We bust out reverb on the whole kit. We only bust out low-end reverb, though, from 258 hertz and below. So what that does is here in the next half hour, when I come in here and finish up these vocals, I'm going to create another return track. I'll go ahead and do that right now. So we'll do insert return. Okay, and we're going to rename this vocal verb. And then we're going to rename this drum verb, but with correct capitalization. Okay, awesome. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our reverb plugin, option click it, and drag it over to vocal verb. Now our vocal return track, our vocal verb return track will have a reverb plugin on it, and we're going to swap these. We're going to cut out the lows. We could go all the way down to 258. We're going to do like 500. So there we have it. Now when I come in to finish processing these vocals, I will have a nice vocal verb return that I can throw some reverb on there if I need to. Sometimes I come in here and mess with delay and do like a Haas delay or a little slapback, but we'll see. Just depends on how the rest of the track is sounding when I go in to do it. Now, let's go to guitars. We did a little bit of EQ on the guitars so far. We did a little bit of editing on the guitars so far. The bulk of my work today is going to be finishing this. And then messing with the vocal tracks to get them to sit right in the mix. Once I have this whole thing perfected, I'm not hearing any clicks or pops anywhere in the instrument tracks. We don't have any ghost fade ins or fade outs. I'll come back up here and start messing with vocals. But here we have another feathering EQ move right here. We know the vocals live here, so we took a little bit out of the guitars. Also, it just so happens that this, quote, scooped guitar sound is just very popular anyways. It's a clean, dirty sound, if that makes any sense. It takes a lot of the nastiness out of the mids that tend to hum a lot, and they also tend to just really muddy up the mix when a lot of elements are involved. Let's move up to bass. I feel like we skipped over bass. So with the bass, we have quite a bit going on. All right, we found 3 hums apparently in the bass. We took them all out, so we're good to go. Let's give this bass track a listen real quick. Okay, yeah, I like it. Nice and pingy. I love that. We kissed it with a compressor just to make sure that it was level across the board. It sounded really good already, but just extra assurance. We feathered it. Yep, we're good to go. Bass looks great. One of the real cool things that we did, though, was we did parallel process the bass to where we had high end on one track, low end on another track, and then we blended them together in our mix window to create our overall bass tone. Parallel processing is really popular also with things like compression. Every time you bust out an effect, it is argued that that's kind of a parallel move. Anything that you do that runs in time with your track and is separate from that track but affects the way that it sounds, you are probably in the realm of parallel processing. It is worthy to note, though, that sidechain processing is a completely different thing. I used to get them mixed up a lot. People continue to mix it up a lot. Sidechaining is when you place an effect on a track that is only triggered when a certain event happens on another track. So that is a sidechain. Your plug-in on track A is triggered by events on track B or signals on track B. So very important to note. Moving on down, though, to synth. I want to say basic EQ would have been what we focused on here, and then just because it's more than one synth track, I'm really hoping that I touched on trying to place these synth sounds in different spots in the spectrum. So let's see. Let's look at our EQ on the subs. I feel like we're going to be pretty much in the high end here. Yep, high end. We let a little more lows in there. Let a lot more lows in there. And we dipped out for vocals. And that little dip is going to help with letting these other 2 synths come through also. That actually might be okay with just the variance in the high pass filter. Let me check my panning. Yeah, I've got them panned to different spots. So the rhythm synth 2 is panned out the furthest. Next in line is going to be the first synth. So these come in a little bit inside of these, and then these come in a lot closer to the middle. So we really did take into account the stereo spectrum there. I'm going to be listening and start doing some surgical EQ stuff throughout the rest of the mix. Maybe. Just depends on how it all sits when I get done with the bass guitar, and vocal editing. So I think that covers it. I think that pretty much touches on everything that we have done so far. We haven't touched the master fader yet. We didn't add any delay yet. Yep. All right. Well, you guys enjoy. I'm going to go ahead and get to work, and I will see you when I'm done.
can I transcend? Now my new fate has shown its face and led me to this dark place. Life's new design now persevere. How did I get here? I'm falling apart. I'm falling apart. Into the dead. You will the sky. You will the and I'm here next to you. Oblivious. You walk all over mine without a care. You light the fire inside. You light the fire. You light the fire.
I think I have gotten as far as I am going to get in this series with this song. I am going to add a bonus video to the beginning of next season where I go through and do the final balance of this mix. But for right now, and I will tell you the last thing I'm going to do before I send this over for approval before mastering, I'm going to show you one part right here. This verse, I think, was the one. So there are a lot of hard S's, hard T's, and hard P's in here. What I do is I come in here.
In conclusion, I escape from conflict of manipulation, observing all inter.
I can even see that manipulation. I can see that T right there. I think that was it. Yeah. That type of stuff is the last thing I'm going to do. I'm going to come in and just really smooth out that vocal track, and then the very last thing will be final balance, and I add a couple of things that I don't know yet if I'm going to cover in these mix tutorials. Eventually they will get covered, but then I'll send it off for mix approval, and the mastering process will begin. Thank you to everybody that checked out this first season of Mix-Thru. I've got an awesome season 2 already scheduled. Have a good one, and I hope everybody has a very happy new year.